I'm gonna talk to you about probably what I would consider the 3 biggest mistakes that you guys can make fishing these baits right here. I'm not even sure if you can see them, but this is one of my crankbait boxes, and let me put them back in here a little nicely, a little more nicely. But I'm gonna probably talk to you as of what I see is probably 3 of the biggest mistakes that I see people make when fishing a shallow diving crankbait. That's something I'm really passionate about, is shallow diving. So much so, I'm so into shallow diving crankbait that I created a rod for a favorite that is specifically built to throw small crankbaits on. I'm gonna show it to you right here. Some of you already seen it. I've been working on this thing. It's almost, I'm like 18 months into this rod. We started it in end of 2019. And we got the last version of it. This is actually not, this is like the 2nd generation. I think there was 4 cuts that we made, 4 generations of it. This is the 2nd one. I still use it too. So even the 2nd generation was pretty good, but that 4th one was like Beyonce. Like the 1st generation was like Whoopi Goldberg. It was funny, but it worked, but it wasn't that good. The 2nd generation was like Madonna, and then that 3rd generation was like Beyonce. You know what I'm saying? Like it's really good. Or was 4th? I don't remember, but the last one's really good. But it is a graphite composite rod. It's not a solid graphite composite. For you guys that don't know, it's graphite and fiberglass. Graphite composite. And it's pretty soft. It's 6'10". It's a medium power. 6'10". I built this rod on the 6-stick series, so when it comes out, it's not available yet, okay? Because I literally just finished giving my critiques on it. It's 6'10". I like a little bit shorter rod when I'm throwing a crankbait. So, because you're gonna be putting it in like tighter places, I feel like you fight the fish better with a graphite composite, all those things. But it'll be like in 130, 150, 160 butt rod, but you're gonna like it. It's gonna be a good rod. 3 mistakes that I see you guys making. Let's jump into them. Too fast to reel. I never go over anything over the 6s. This is a 6-8-1. Make sure I'm telling you right, because I got a couple other 6s. I got 6-5-1s. Yes, 6-8-1 gear ratio reel. This is the absolute fastest reel that I'll use. The reason that I like a little bit faster for cranking is during practice. I'm usually moving pretty fast. I'm cranking my boat to the crankbait. I'm throwing out. I'm fishing really fast, so I'll use a 6-8-1. Now in the wintertime, or if I find like one of those one cast places where I was like, no, you got to cast right there by that rock, bring it back. He's going to eat lunch. I'll go to an even slower reel for 2 reasons. You're going to hang up less with a slower reel. Nobody really talks to you about that. You're going to hang up less because the bait will kind of worm through the rocks and wood and stuff a little bit better. When you wind the crankbait really fast, it's going to turn sideways, and as the hooks are going to grab the wood or the rocks or whatever, you're just going to hang up a little bit more. Slower reel, it just kind of comes through the structure a lot better, right? So try that. You're going to lose less fish with a slower reel most of the time. Because usually with a crankbait, you got open hooks here. When you got him, you got him. You got him, you ain't got to do nothing else. You just got to keep the line fairly tight and you're good. Unless the fish is running to you, you're okay. The problem is you get excited, your adrenaline's running, you want to crank that fish. You want to put your head down and crank. With a fast reel, all you're going to do is rip the hooks out of his mouth. So I feel like I can keep my fish pegged a little bit better with a slower reel. All right, so those are the 2 reasons that I like to use a little bit slower reel. Something in the 5.5s, 5.8s, nothing faster than 6-8-1. The other mistake that I see you guys making with shallow diving crankbaits, too big a line. 10 or 12 pound tests in all situations for me. 10 or 12. Let me back up. 10, 12, or 15. There are some situations where I will use 15, and that's pretty much with my balsa crankbaits. I'll use a balsa crankbait sometime, and I don't want to break them off, so I'll use 15. But otherwise, 10 and 12 pound test line is all I use. Reason being, some of these crankbaits are lighter, especially balsa wood crankbaits. They can be a pain to throw. And if I can get away with throwing a balsa, like I don't feel like I'm gonna hang up a lot, I will throw my crankbaits on 12, 10 or 12, even the balsa ones. But these baits are a pain to throw. If you try to throw them on anything bigger than 15 is the max, and that's pushing it. 10 and 12 pound test, like you see, it's flat sided, so it catches air and it does a lot of weird stuff in the air when you go to make a cast. You can't cast it on 17 and 20 pound tests. A lot of people talk about the depth that it'll get. I don't really care about that actually, because I'm making such short casts that probably the depth of the bait is not being affected by the line size. So 10, 12 pound test line is pretty much what I'm going to use. So 10, 12 pound test line, 10 or 12, that's that country coming at me. 10, 12 pound test line, they're like, dude, you're going to go to the tackle store and say, where's that 10, 12 pound test line? I don't know, this gal on YouTube said get 10, 12. 10 or 12 pound test fishing line. Fluorocarbon is what I use for the most part. There's some situations that I need to use mono, but if you're watching this video, probably just stick with fluorocarbon. All right, we're just going to keep it simple. Stick with fluorocarbon, you're going to be a lot better off. The third mistake that I see people making on fishing crankbaits, let me show you. I got an entire tackle box dedicated to this. Let me see if I can find it. When you buy a crankbait out of the box, there are some crankbaits that have really good hooks on them, but most of them don't have that good of hooks on them. And I'm going to show you how important I think this really is. Hooks. I keep a whole box of fresh hooks. One of the mistakes I see people make, take a crankbait out of the box and start throwing it. If you're just fun fishing, that's just fine. Tournaments, never do that. Get you a set of really, really, really good hooks. Change them out often in tournament settings. Change them out 2 or 3 times during the day. Shallow diving crankbaits, a lot of times I'm running them into bridge pilings. I'm dragging them through the mud. I'm dragging them through the rocks. And so I want you to think about this, okay? You're bringing this crankbait through rocks and laydowns, and the thing that's going to hit the bottom all the time, what is it? Look at that. What's going to hit? If you're running, say my hand is the bottom, when that crankbait's running, the hooks are constantly dragging on the rocks. And these little points on the hooks, they're like literally chemically sharpened. They're not sharpening, there's not a little man in there sharpening them with a file. They're literally sharpened with some type of chemical. That's how sharp the point is. So anything that hits that point is going to dull it out. And so when I'm really throwing a crankbait a lot, I'll change hooks once or twice at least in a tournament. And I promise you, there's going to be a lot of times where you're just going to have a fish hooked by one little skin hook. People always laugh at me because when I'm fighting a fish on a crankbait, like I'm just playing him, I'm free spooling the line, like I'm playing the fish really hard. A lot of people make fun of me, say, oh, I could have had that fish in the boat. No, you couldn't. You would have lost him because you would have pressured him and he would have got off. So hooks, very important. I keep a lot of fresh hooks. Most of the time on small diving crankbaits, you're gonna be using number 4s, number 6s. Get some really good, high quality number 4, number 6 hooks. Keep a bunch of them in your boat because you're gonna need them. If you're serious tournament fisherman, that tip is for you. If you're fishing, having a lot of fun, look, get the rustiest hooks you can find. You watch, they'll never come off of them. It's weird how that works. In practice, they don't ever come off. I can have the rustiest, ranketiest, dankiest doo-doo hooks in my boat and they'll never come off. But in the tournament, I can have the best hook in the world and somehow they'll figure out how to get off. So that is my tips for you guys. The 3 most common mistakes and the tips. I gave you you hear me what I did? I gave them the tip and I told them what they were doing wrong. All in one video, cuz. That's what I got for you. Try that. That should help you catch more fish, stay buttoned up, and live a happier life when you're fishing crankbaits.